100 free agents, 100 predictions. It's the night before NFL free agency, so it's time for the final time to predict 100 landing spots for the top 100 NFL free agents. If that sounds good, you know what to do. There's no one else that's crazy enough to make this video except for me. Gronk, spike the like button, and let's predict 100 free agents and their destination this free agency. Beginning at quarterback, the big ticket item, Malik Willis. I've been on the train to the Miami Dolphins all offseason, but I've changed to the Cardinals. Why? Mike LaFleur to Matt LaFleur. The Cardinals, they have the cap space to do it. They have the weaponry with Marvin Harrison Jr., Trey McBride, Michael Wilson. It makes more sense for Miami to rebuild. Well, it makes more sense for Arizona to actually move on from Kyler Murray and pay Malik Willis. Now, maybe he will end up in Miami or New York, but I like the idea of going from Matt to Mike LaFleur for Malik Willis. Aaron Rodgers. He'll return to Pittsburgh for one last ride with his old coach, Mike McCarthy. If not, he's retiring. We have Kyler Murray to the Minnesota Vikings. If the Vikings want a cheap option at quarterback, that won't be a long-term investment, that's also really talented and has immense upside, then Kyler Murray is the perfect answer. He can manage a game with his feet, and he can also provide explosiveness with his arm and some creation. Plus, if you're Kyler Murray, there's no better situation. Justin Jefferson, Kevin O'Connell, a great defense led by Brian Flores. You're playing in a dome. There's no better situation for Kyler to turn his career around than Minnesota. Geno Smith. If they can't get Kyler Murray or Malik Willis, I believe Geno Smith will be the quarterback for the Jets. A return to the Jets and a full circle moment for the career of Geno Smith. I think a lot of people could look at Geno's last season and say that he isn't that terrible, as bad as he played with the Raiders, because it was a complete mess with the Raiders. Pete Carroll, Chip Kelly, the lack of offensive line. You go to the Jets with a better offensive line, with Garrett Wilson, with Breece Hall, with a bunch of draft picks. He's a great bridge option that won't be overly expensive, and he's a phenomenal leader. Geno to the Jets. Kirk Cousins to back up Mendoza and be the mentor for Mendoza with the Raiders. He has a connection with Clint Kubiak dating back to his Minnesota days. Cousins is the perfect mentor at this stage in his career. He might get an option to start somewhere, maybe for a short period, but I think he's better off playing the mentor role for one or two more seasons in the NFL. Marcus Mariota to help the Chiefs survive the early portion of their schedule. Patrick Mahomes, probably unlikely that he plays a ton in September, although it's possible. Regardless, they're going to need a veteran that can step in and play some games. Mariota is not threatening at all as an actual starting option, but he is a very reliable backup. He was really good last year. He can provide some plays with his legs, some plays, sneaky downfield option throwing the ball, and you can bring a different element to the offense with Mariota running the ball. I expect Mariota to be a coveted backup quarterback. He was really good for Washington. I think he'd be really good for Andy Reid. The final quarterback, Joe Flacco. Joe Flacco reunites with Kevin Stefanski in Atlanta. The perfect mentor option and possible competition for Michael Penix. Michael Penix dealing with the injury, but you look at both quarterbacks. They're very similar in skill set. Both have giant arms, even Flacco at his age. They're both pocket-centric. They don't move very well. They're statues, but they both can deliver the ball and are very efficient and effective throwing the ball down the field off of play action. So either way, I think both quarterbacks fit Stefanski's system. Both quarterbacks are going to play off Bijan running the rock. I think both quarterbacks can be effective. Now, obviously, Penix, they want him to be the long-term solution, but Flacco could beat him out for the job early on, or just push him enough, or even give him a little bit of something to help him long-term in his career. So, Flacco back with Stefanski with the Falcons. At running back, Kenneth Walker to the Washington Commanders. This one made the most sense. The Commanders have cap. They want to run an under-center offense, and they don't have a running back whatsoever. They have maybe the biggest need for a running back in the NFL. Walker is an electric talent at running back. He's a top 5 pure runner in the NFL, number 1 according to PFF last season. A missed tackle forced machine. He has incredible jump cut ability, incredible explosiveness. Pairing him up with Jaden Daniels with an under-center offense makes all the sense in the world. So going from Washington State to Washington, yeah, I like it for Kenneth Walker, K9. Travis Etienne to the Denver Broncos. I wasn't buying this early on in the rumor cycle, but I am buying it now. I think that with Harvey, they want to complement. Travis Etienne is a 3-down running back who will be excellent in the screen game, excellent in the quick passing game. He's a good pass blocker for that Sean Payton system, that Bo Nix quick strike attack, that quick passing attack. He'll be excellent in that element. He's also a very reliable runner in between the tackles and outside the tackles. And I think just a change-up force like they had in J.K. Dobbins, but even more so, more talented. I think Denver needs to add some options, some talent, and some electricity to this offense. I think ETN gives them that. Kenneth Gainwell to the New Orleans Saints. Gainwell worked with Kellen Moore in Philadelphia. I think that's a sneaky tie to the Saints. Gainwell is really talented, and Tyler Shuck, high pass volume. The Saints want to throw the ball a lot. So bringing in a running back who can replace Alvin Kamara, but also complement Kamara in the short term, it's a perfect situation. Both are excellent pass catchers. Both are very smooth. Both are great route runners. Gainwell is probably the most underrated back on the market. He'd be a perfect fit for Kellen Moore. A lot out of the gun, running routes, catching screens, doing his thing in the pass-heavy attack of Tyler Shuck and the Saints. Rachaad White to the Jacksonville Jags. Rachaad White would reunite with Liam Cohen. Rachaad White, also an excellent pass catcher, really good pass blocker, and that's a good complement to Tootin, who will be the primary early down ball carrier. He's also bringing more of a power element, but Rachaad White was really good as a runner last year, very underrated, and I think I like the balance between the power and the slick, sweet speed of Tootin. I think that's a nice combination for Trevor Lawrence, getting a third down back, a real pass option for this offense. Rico Dowdle to the Chiefs. I don't think the Chiefs want to spend top dollar on Kenneth Walker or Travis Etienne. As much as I think it would help them, I think they're better off spending a little bit less for a really talented player that kind of reminds me a little bit of a younger Kareem Hunt, or like a more of a power-esque combination of Pacheco and Kareem Hunt. A little bit more explosive than this version of Kareem Hunt, but a little bit less explosive than Pacheco at his peak, but more powerful than Pacheco. 1,000 yards in back-to-back seasons with the Cowboys and with the Carolina Panthers. He fits their offense extremely well. He adds a grinder inside the tackles, but he's also slick enough and talented enough to do pretty much everything in their offense. I think this would be a really underrated signing for the Chiefs and an instant upgrade to their backfield. Aaron Jones to the Pittsburgh Steelers. Yes, Aaron Jones reuniting with Aaron Rodgers. If they lose Kenneth Gainwell, this is their number one option. Aaron Jones can still run the rock really well. We know what he can do in the pass game, and he obviously has a great relationship with Aaron Rodgers. Mike McCarthy also coached him once upon a time, so he knows the offense really well. And again, Aaron Rodgers loves to have his buddies around. I think Aaron Jones can still really take off and hit an explosive. With Jalen Warren there and Caleb Johnson there, I think all they really need is Aaron Jones to take like 10 touches a game and not overpay Kenneth Gainwell. So this makes perfect sense for a short-term option pairing up with Aaron Rodgers. Tyler Algier to replace Kenneth Walker in Seattle. Now, not fully, but Algier is a really underrated runner. He's perfect in a zone-heavy scheme, which is what Seattle loves to run. Tyler Algier is powerful. In between the tackles, he's really efficient. And again, 1,000 yards before Bijan even got there. He's already proven he can carry the load if need be. a nice compliment to Charbonnet, who's more of a pass catcher. I like that potential replacement for Kenneth Walker. Alec Pierce, our first wide receiver. I do believe the hype. I think he's going to the Patriots. Drake May's the best downfield passer in the NFL. Alec Pierce is the best downfield receiver in the NFL. He's going to get paid top money. They cut Stephon Diggs to open up cap space to sign a guy like this. It makes perfect sense. He's young. Drake May, he's young. This is the guy that perfectly matches up. There's no situation that makes more sense than the best deep ball passer to the best deep ball receiver in the NFL, Alec Pierce, to the Patriots. Tyreek Hill reuniting with Mike McDaniel. Now, he could go to the Chiefs. I won't deny that. But I think that the Chargers, if they're interested, this is the pairing that I like. I love how he and Ladd McConkey could complement each other, work off of each other. Tyreek was still really good last year when he did play early in the season. He's still explosive enough. Obviously, McDaniel knows how to use him inside, outside. He can still threaten deep, and he provides a much-needed speed for Justin Herbert, who honestly doesn't truly have great deep threats on that offense. Quentin Johnson can kind of do that a little bit, but I think with the improvement of the offensive line, Tyreek can do so much from the screen game to the running game to the deep passing game. I think this would be a perfect over-the-top option to just take that Chargers offense to the next level for Mike McDaniel. Mike Evans returning to Tampa. I'd like to see him leave, maybe to the Chargers or to the Patriots, but I think because some other receivers will be chose before him, maybe, I feel like Mike Evans might return to Tampa with Baker Mayfield. Very familiar with him. He might not love the situation of what's going on with their not capacity to win necessarily, maybe some friction with Todd Bowles, but he's a legend in Tampa. He's adored in Tampa. It's different for him. If he were to go to another team, he's simply looking to ring chase for another ring in his career to build his Hall of Fame resume, which he's essentially already in. I don't know. I feel like Tampa is his home, and it's going to be hard for him not to stay. Wan'Dale Robinson to the Commanders. Now, I had him initially going to Tennessee, and I could certainly see that connection with Brian Daboll. I think he would be a very nice compliment for Terry McLaurin. The Commanders are going to be very busy in free agency. They've been connected to a lot of receivers this offseason, so I think they're going to land one of these guys. Robinson, they've seen many times because of obviously playing for the Giants. He's a target volume machine, and he is a perfect upgrade and replacement for Deebo Samuel. He's also much younger, so it makes sense that the Commanders want to go younger, get some guys around Jaden Daniels long term. Romeo Doubs, ex-receiver for Kyle Shanahan. There's just too many reports. There's too much smoke for me not to buy this. Romeo Doubs played for Mike LaFleur. Obviously, he knows, or Matt LaFleur, sorry, not Mike LaFleur, getting those LaFleurs messed up. But Kyle Shanahan, he's going to know the offense. Romeo Doubs is kind of reminiscent of a Pierre Garçon who played for Kyle Shanahan in Washington. Very complete player, plays the outside role, can go down the field, can add an element to the Niners that they didn't have last year, that Brandon Ayuk role where he is an element downfield, but he's very good in terms of contested situations, also an element that they need. And he's just a smooth, well-defined, overall solid player that I don't think the Niners have in terms of that outside perimeter presence. And he's young, he's in his prime. I think he's a perfect fit for what Shanahan wants to do, and he already knows the fundamentals of the offense. Deebo Samuel also returning to the 49ers. Deebo kind of replacing Juwan Jennings in some ways. A little bit of a spoiler there. Deebo looked really good in Washington last season in his yak capabilities. They looked back. He looked more powerful. He looked quicker. He looked faster. He looked slow in his last season in San Francisco. All his friends are in San Francisco. Kyle's in San Francisco. He wants to reunite. They want him to reunite. I mean, it just feels right for Deebo to return to the 49ers. Juwan Jennings to the Tennessee Titans. I spoiled it a little bit, but Jennings did play in Tennessee in college as a volunteer, so it's a return home for him. It's also reuniting or teaming up with Robert Saleh because he was around him last year. But Robert Saleh will want to have that veteran presence, that leader on offense, which Juwan Jennings, for all of his attitude, he is a leader off the field and on the field. He's had a lot of big game experience. He's going to bring a third down conversion specialist to this offense, a contested catch weapon for Cam Ward, a big target over the middle of the field. That's exactly what a young quarterback needs, like Cam Ward, who's really good at throwing the ball into tight windows. And Brian Daboll, I've heard that they almost traded for him in New York, so it does make sense for him to be that big slot receiver in Tennessee. Stephon Diggs to the Baltimore Ravens. This just feels right. I don't know if Diggs will have a very big market, but I think Baltimore will be one of the teams at the top of the list. Diggs is probably not going to command a ton of money, but he was a very effective receiver for New England last year. Their number one receiver and a 1,000-yard player. And what he's very good at is he's very good at eating zone coverages, which Baltimore faces a lot of because of Lamar's speed, quickness, and agility, which make teams sit back in zone and not play a lot of man. Diggs is also excellent in the middle of the field, and he's excellent on third down. And I think that that's a type of player that the Ravens need. Plus, they're changing their offense a little bit to more of a Lions, Ben Johnson sort of offense. This could be an Amon-Ra St. Brown type role for Diggs, playing mostly in the slot. They're probably going to lose Isaiah Likely, less 2-3 tight end formations, more 2-3-4 receiver sets, more receivers. So I think Diggs complementing Rashad Bateman, complementing Zay Flowers and Mark Andrews feels right. I think it rounds out the room, and it does feel like Max Crosby getting traded to the Ravens. They're all in on winning this year. Diggs is a perfect option for that. Plus, he was a great leader for the Patriots when he was on the field. The off-the-field stuff is what you have to get over with Diggs. Keenan Allen, the final receiver here, to the New Orleans Saints. I really like this fit because Keenan Allen worked with Kellen Moore a couple years back with the Chargers and Justin Herbert. And Keenan Allen could be a perfect veteran presence for Tyler Shuck to complement Chris Olave. He wouldn't be asked to be a number one like Diggs was for May last year, more of a number two or number three, right? And I feel like that's exactly what they need. Plus, there's a sneaky opportunity for the Saints, and Keenan Allen may notice this. The Saints might win their division if things go right with Tyler Shuck and his development. And I think Keenan Allen still wants to be involved in an offense, a high target role in an offense. And Allen is that type of veteran presence who's always open against zone coverage. He's always right. He always knows what to do. And that's exactly what a younger quarterback needs. I'd love this fit for Keenan Allen and for Tyler Shuck and the Saints. Rashid Shaheed, forgot about him. Las Vegas Raiders is the answer. Clint Kubiak loves this guy. I mean, he goes everywhere he goes, basically. So Kubiak, he had him with the Saints. Then they wanted him with the Seahawks. He did great things for the special teams in Seattle, some good things for the Seattle offense. Rashid Shaheed is an electric player, and the Raiders need over-the-top speed. If you're looking at it from Shaheed's perspective, the Raiders have a ton of cap space. They have a number one receiver opening right now. There's a real possibility Shaheed could sign there and become their number one receiver. He could be featured in their offense next to Brock Bowers. And he's going to be working with a first overall pick quarterback. And Shaheed's also young, so he fits in the long-term vision of what the Raiders want to become. Travis Kelce, let's get this out of the way. Unless he retires and goes off into the sunset with Taylor Swift, he's playing for the Chiefs. I don't know what else to say. He's a Chief legend. He's not going anywhere, but playing for Kansas City one final time, in my opinion. Dallas Goedert to the Tennessee Titans. I wanted to put Dallas Goedert in a situation where he could actually go to a good team. But honestly, does it matter? I feel like Goddard is kind of more chasing money at this point. He's already won a Super Bowl. He hasn't really gotten a huge contract. Tennessee might be able to afford that as they have the most cap space in the NFL. They're also in major need for a veteran tight end presence over the middle, kind of like what they have in Juwan Jennings at wide receiver. Again, to help Cam Ward get him to that next step and develop him. And Brian Daboll loves that tight end position, loves guys that are multidimensional, loves guys that can block. Goddard's been underrated for seasons. Daboll's seen it up close and personal from his days seeing him in New York against the Philadelphia Eagles. I think Goddard would be a great presence for Cam Ward and a very good leader on a very young team. Isaiah Likely to the Washington Commanders. While I do think the Patriots are a possibility for Isaiah Likely, I think it makes more sense for him to go to a place like Washington where he could compete for some targets. And I already have Wan'Dale going there. I think they're going to sign a receiver and a tight end. I think Isaiah Likely is another guy like Wan'Dale who's about 26, 27 years old. He's still ascending as a player. He fits in the long-term vision of what the Commanders want to be. The Commanders have flipped their script from going older and now ready to guys that are still really talented that are also going to be long-term with the team. They have a ton of cap space to work with, and they need weapons, and Jaden Daniels and this offense is attractive to play with. I also have Kenneth Walker going there, so they're really loading up, but that's exactly what they're going to do this offseason. Next, David Njoku reuniting with Baker Mayfield from the the Browns days. So David Njoku is on the market. He's not returning to the Browns. He could maybe save the Eagles from their loss of Goddard, but I like the idea of maybe him replacing Cade Otton in Tampa Bay. He's a very good blocker. He's still really athletic. He's a great yak threat, which the Bucs kind of need in their offense. And he's just a really solid player, which already has rapport with his quarterback. It makes a lot of sense as a replacement to appease Baker after losing one or two of his weapons, especially if he loses Mike Evans. Cade Otton to the Denver Broncos. I can't pass this one up, guys. I really like this partnership that could become with the Broncos and Cade Otton, Sean Payton with Cade Otton, an inline tight end who can block, but also is excellent against zone coverage, finds soft spots, really good hands, possession tight end, bigger target for Bo Nix, who needs that stable force over the middle of the field. It's all about dinking and dunking and quick decisions in this offense, and this is the type of tight end that fits that beautifully with the Broncos and Bo Nix. Chig Okonkwo to the Patriots. Now, I personally didn't understand this at first, but there are so many rumors about this addition for the Patriots, and there's also a lot of rumors about New England adding a tight end. It could be Isaiah Likely. It could be Dallas Goedert. It could be Chig Okonkwo. It could be David Njoku. I went with Chig because Vrabel drafted him, and the staff that is in New England, a couple of those people are from Tennessee that drafted Okonkwo, really like him as a talent. He's since ascended, gotten better, developed a little bit more. And what I like about his addition to New England is he might not be a complete tight end like McDaniels typically goes for. That's more Hunter Henry, though, still for the Patriots, maybe in the short term. Okonkwo is extremely athletic and brings vertical speed and yak. New England needs explosiveness. So even if he's not a complete tight end, he can bring that juice that Drake May does need, especially in that yak department, to make the difference for the Patriots offense. Taylor Decker on the offensive line at tackle, reuniting with Ben Johnson for 1 year. I think this could be a 1 year, 2 year deal. They lost their rookie left tackle that started for them last year. I believe it's Trapilo, or I believe. So Decker could replace him on the short term. Obviously knows the offense, knows the scheme, has a chance to compete, has a chance to go toe-to-toe with the Detroit Lions after they cut him, essentially, and gave up on him. So it makes a lot of sense. Ben Johnson wanting to beat the Lions, Taylor Decker wanting to beat the Lions. Why not do it together, guys? All right, we got Rasheed Walker to the Cleveland Browns. I just can't find a better place for him than the Cleveland Browns. Maybe going back to the Packers would make a lot of sense, but I think he's going to get a pretty penny. And the Browns are desperate to fix their offensive line. They have only now one player at right tackle, so they still got 4 more to go and 4 more to sign or draft, and they're not all going to come from the draft. Rasheed Walker is a good NFL tackle. He's young, so he's a guy that you can build around. He's a guy that can be stable for your offensive line. And for Todd Monken's sake, I hope he's going to have some good players on his offensive line in his first year with the Cleveland Browns. Jermaine Illuminor returning to the Giants. He has a connection with John Harbaugh from his early days in the NFL with the Ravens. That's where he began his career. I think that will be a stable force or stabilizing force for their negotiations. I think Jermaine Illuminor was a borderline Pro Bowl player in his time with the Giants last year. He was very good, and they want to keep that stable tackle play around Jackson Dart in his young career. It makes too much sense. Unless he gets a massive offer somewhere else for a team that needs a right tackle, I think he'll stay with the Giants. I think he wants to stay there. Braden Smith to the Las Vegas Raiders. I think the Raiders are really going to attack free agency to not only get better on defense, offense, but make sure that Mendoza is well insulated and supported. And I think that begins with protection. So Colton Miller should return early in the year, but their right tackle situation is a disaster. Braden Smith might be a little bit older, like 30, 31, and has some injury concerns, but that might allow you to get him a little cheaper. Money's not really a problem for the Raiders, though. They could overspend here. Braden Smith's been a top 20 tackle in the NFL since he's really began in his career with the Colts. He's a good player, can fit almost any system, and would just, again, stabilize the weakness of the Raiders, which was last year their offensive line. It was so bad, it just completely derailed their entire team. Jawan Taylor to the Arizona Cardinals. A cheap starting option with Super Bowl experience, back-to-back Super Bowl winner for the Kansas City Chiefs. The Cardinals, if they're going to go after Malik Willis, they need to protect him. So Jawan Taylor replaces Jonah Williams. I think a slight upgrade there. Really good in the run game as well, and I think fits the LaFleur zone blocking scheme as well. David Edwards at the guard position, also to the Raiders. I couldn't find a better home for him. This was the one. I don't see a lot of connection to the Raiders here, so I could be wrong. This is more of a me feel, but I think he fits the zone scheme extremely well for Kubiak, having played under McVay with the Rams early in his career, and then having played with the Bills for multiple seasons at a very high level, a borderline Pro Bowl player in their run game, very good pass blocker. Again, the Raiders need to think about protecting Mendoza and creating space for Ashton Genty, which is the primary thing about Kubiak's offense that they need to be successful with. And Edwards is better than anyone on the market at run blocking and at opening up space and moving in space with those zone blocking schemes. We've got Elijah Vera-Tucker to the New York Giants. I'm not sure what his contract's going to be, but the Giants have basically said and stated that they want to get a top of the market guard. Elijah Vera-Tucker might not go for top of the market money, but he is a top of the market talent. Going from the Jets to the Giants, not very far in terms of travel. You're literally playing at the same stadium. That's also a factor here. I think a lot of players are going to be believers in the John Harbaugh, Jackson Dart era of the Giants. I think Vera-Tucker would be a huge upgrade for them on the interior for sure. So I would really like this move for them. Kevin Zeitler back with Baltimore with his only Pro Bowl season coming in Baltimore a couple years back. I think this completes the offensive line potentially for the Ravens if they're able to get Tyler Linderbaum back at the center position. Zeitler's obviously a short-term solution. He's pretty old, but he played extremely well for Tennessee last year. He's shown no fall off. And again, the Ravens with that Max Crosby move have basically said to everybody, yeah, we switched coaches. That doesn't matter. We're trying to win the Super Bowl with Lamar Jackson. Zeitler is a Super Bowl winning move. Isaac Seumalo to the Chargers, a perfect fit for Mike McDaniel's run scheme. He's a powerhouse who can still move. And this just feels like a Jim Harbaugh or even a Harbaugh offensive lineman, right? It just feels like it. The Samoan type vibe with the hair. I mean, it just is what it is, bro. They got a type. I'm not going to lie. Then we've got Wyatt Teller to the Houston Texans. He wants to go to the Texans. He's outright said that. I'm pretty sure the Texans have been reported that they're interested in Wyatt Teller. Wyatt Teller is a great fit for their scheme, would open up their run game immensely. That's what they need to do. I think they might bring back Ed Ingram at this spot at right guard, but I think Wyatt Teller playing at his best would really make the Texans a much better run game now that they brought in David Montgomery. It's a nice little compliment to what they want to do there on the interior run game. Then we got Dylan Parham to the Patriots. I had him going in the Niners recently. I think the Patriots are also a very strong possibility to basically replace Garrett Bradbury. So Jarrett Wilson, move over to center, play his natural position out of the draft. Dylan Parham is about 26, 27 years old. He was drafted by Josh McDaniels relatively early, when Josh McDaniels was there with the Raiders. So Josh McDaniels really likes him. He was actually very highly graded and touted by PFF very early in his career when he played under Josh McDaniels, including being part of the line that allowed Josh Jacobs to lead the NFL in rushing. He's very athletic, very good in the run game especially. I think he would really help that left side and just complete the offensive line potentially for the Patriots here. Zion Johnson reuniting with Kellen Moore from his days with the Chargers. Zion Johnson going to the Saints. I already had this one in a different video. He's a good player. He's a younger player. He's still maybe some untapped potential. And the Saints, they do need to spend on a guard. That's basically all they're missing on the offensive line. 2 young tackles, an excellent center. Get Zion Johnson in there for the long term, and you're set ahead or in front of Tyler Shuck. Joel Bitonio to the 49ers. Joel Bitonio, believe it or not, was coached by Kyle Shanahan in 2014. A long time ago when Kyle was in Cleveland. So there is a connection there. Bitonio is a short-term solution for San Francisco's interior offensive line, but a great one. Bitonio is still a very good player, a borderline Pro Bowl guard that could open up the run game, which San Francisco sorely needs. They were lacking in the run game last year, and he's also just a pro's pro, right? We saw Kyle. He got Alex Mack once upon a time, right? I think he could get Joel Bitonio back with him as well. Ed Ingram to the Seattle Seahawks. Ed Ingram could be the perfect upgrade, still with youth and looking to the future for this young Seattle team at that right guard position. Not that they need to go young here, but that's typically their preference on the offensive line. Ed Ingram fits their zone blocking scheme. He had a breakout season with the Texans, grading 12th among all guards last season. And there might be a little bit of indecisiveness on if this was a real breakout for him, but that feels like a player that could be undervalued for Schneider to pick up and the Seahawks to really like. Tyler Linderbaum will return to the Ravens. I didn't think this would happen until all the recent center moves have basically told us that Linderbaum's going to get an extremely expensive contract, and a lot of teams are just not willing to go there. But the connection between him and the Ravens is very strong. After the Max Crosby deal, that probably incentivizes all players to sign with the Ravens. Like, if you were a Ravens player and you've been there your whole career and you were drafted by them in the first round, why wouldn't you go back after Max Crosby got traded to your team? Like, and they're going to give you a lot of money. It just makes too much sense. You get Zeitler in there. That's a really good offensive line. That's a huge upgrade in front of Derrick Henry and Lamar Jackson. Cade Mays to the Houston Texans. The Texans are going to be in the market for a center. We're running out of options. Cade Mays is a good player who's still ascending, still kind of at the beginning of his prime, finally got an opportunity to shine in Carolina and really made it work. So I think he'll make it work in Houston. John Franklin Myers, our first defensive player to the Tennessee Titans, reuniting with Robert Saleh from his days with the Jets. They got rid of Tavondre Sweat, opening up an opportunity for John Franklin Myers, a player that played on the edge or the interior for Robert Saleh in those Jets days, a guy that kind of gave him a Michael Bennett, Eric Armstead type of player. That's exactly what they're looking for here from John Franklin Myers, one of the most underrated interior defensive linemen for many seasons, coming off a great year with the Broncos. DJ Reader back to the Bengals. Both of these guys and these teams and these situations need each other. Reader's kind of slacking in his production with the Lions, a solid player, but nothing special for the Lions, not what they expected. Meanwhile, ever since DJ Reader left the Bengals, they have not been able to tackle, not been able to stop the run, not been able to play defense. There's correlation here. Obviously, Al Golden does know Reader from his days as the linebacker coach in Cincinnati. He'll respect what he does to open those linebackers up for stopping the run. I think Reader returns to the Bengals. David Onyemata. He is going to reunite with Ryan Nielsen in Minnesota. Now, Ryan Nielsen is involved with the Minnesota defense now, and he's basically tracked with him his entire career. So he was with them in New Orleans, where David Onyemata was a standout on the Saints defense. He then went to Atlanta with Ryan Nielsen, and he was a standout with the Falcons, and I think he'll go to Minnesota. Minnesota, they released Jonathan Allen. They released Javon Hargrave. They have a huge need at interior defensive line. Onyemata is a classic, massive nose tackle that Brian Flores needs. The Vikings were lacking against the run. This would solve it. Sheldon Rankins to the Houston Texans. They're just too good together to not reunite. Like, I would actually hate for Sheldon Rankins to go anywhere else, because I feel like anywhere other than DeMeco Ryans, he's just been okay. He's maybe had one or two good years with like Cincinnati or whatever, but I feel like with the Texans, he's just a different player. It suits his style, it suits his quickness, it suits his penetration style of play, and he was a game changer for them on the interior as a perfect complement to what they have on the edges. So Rankins stays with the Texans. Calais Campbell to the Green Bay Packers. He knows Jonathan Gannon's defense from obviously his last season in Arizona. I would love to see Calais Campbell play one final season on a contender, and they just did trade an interior defensive lineman, opening up a possible spot for a massive Calais Campbell. One last ride for the big man in Green Bay. Logan Hall to the Jacksonville Jags. He stays in the state of Florida. Logan Hall is an underrated interior defensive lineman, prospect addition, free agent, however you want to put it. Coming from Tampa Bay, they're not going to pay him. They're probably going to spend money elsewhere. Logan Hall is a nice complement to what they already have on the interior defensive line. He brings some more quickness, some more length, and some more pass rushing prowess to that defensive line, which is exactly what they need, and he's young. Khyiris Tonga to the Las Vegas Raiders. Tonga was a really underrated part of the Patriots' run defense, which was stellar last season. Tonga is an excellent nose tackle, and that's exactly what the Raiders need. In that defense, they're going to play that Mike McDonald style. You need to have large interior defensive lineman that can take up space, that can move people, and that can penetrate with quickness. And Tonga has all those skills, and the Raiders have so much money they can afford to overpay him if they want to. But he would instantly help their run game and establish the core of their defensive philosophy. Next, Sebastian Joseph Day to the New York Giants. Sebastian Joseph Day reuniting with his defensive coordinator from Tennessee, who's now the defensive coordinator in New York. Sebastian Joseph Day was really solid in Tennessee last year. He's a nice complementary player. He's not going to get overpaid, not a ton of money. He's a veteran. He's around 30 years old, but he's good everywhere he goes. Very solid, stable, good in the run game, solid pass rusher. Nice little compliment to what they already have there. They needed a second interior defensive lineman. This is the exact fit next to Dexter Lawrence. Trey Hendrickson. Yes, big ticket item for the Patriots. I think it's the Patriots or the Cowboys. Maybe the Colts for Trey Hendrickson. New England has the money. Again, Stephon Diggs, gone. The Patriots are going to look for a receiver, and they're going to look for an edge rusher. And this makes a lot of sense. Mike Vrabel, former edge rusher / linebacker. There isn't a place that players want to play more, or for a coach or a quarterback or a situation coming off of what they did last year than the Patriots, especially given their legacy. Trey Hendrickson is a grinder, but I think he will be paid by the Patriots to come after and close games. That's what New England's defense is missing, is a closer, is a game changer at that edge position. And I think Hendrickson fits everything that Mike Vrabel wants from a player. He's extremely hardworking. He has extremely high motor. He's very talented at getting to the quarterback, and he's a perfect fit for their system. So Trey Hendrickson to the Patriots, I actually think will happen. Next, we've got K'Lavon Chaisson to the Washington Commanders. So after getting Trey Hendrickson, the Patriots are going to move on from K'Lavon Chaisson. He's going to go somewhere else because they're not going to pay both those guys. K'Lavon Chaisson to the Commanders. I love him as a fit to Dan Quinn. I think that the Washington Commanders will pay an edge rusher, one of these guys. Maybe it won't be Jalen Phillips. Maybe it won't be Trey Hendrickson. That might be too expensive. But K'Lavon Chaisson is young, again, fits the mold of a younger player. He's quick. He can play in all situations, although he's a better pass rusher. I think his style, he's a little undersized. It fits more of Dan Quinn's edge. You think of the guys that he's had, like the Dante Fowlers, the quickness, Von Miller, those style of guys. Vic Beasley in Atlanta, like those style of guys. I think K'Lavon Chaisson fits that really well. He can drop into coverage. He can be versatile. He can loop and play in those games and those fronts. So, yeah, I think K'Lavon Chaisson is a really good fit for Dan Quinn, actually. So, Trey Hendrickson. Then we got K'Lavon. Then we got Muhammad from the Lions. The quietest 11-sack season I've ever seen in my life. By the way, I didn't even know that until I did the study for this video. To the Jets. So, reuniting with Aaron Glenn. Muhammad was really good with Detroit, and I think he could be a starting edge rusher. They lost Jermaine Johnson, or they traded him away, so they do need some sort of edge rusher. I don't think they'll play at the top of the market. They could get one in the draft maybe, but Muhammad's a good, productive pass rusher. Not a game changer, but a good player that obviously is coming off the best season of his career. He wants to get paid handsomely for it. I think the Jets can afford it with all the cap space that they do have. Okay. Where are we? Odafe Owe is next up. Where are we? Odafe Owe. Sorry, guys. We got so many graphics here. Odafe Owe to the Chargers. Okay, so he's going to go back to the Chargers. I had him going to the Ravens, but then obviously they made a move for Max Crosby. Odafe Owe, they signed Khalil Mack. They want to sign Owe. I think he had a breakout season with the Chargers. I think he wants to return to the Chargers. I think they want to keep that front together, that edge rotation together. I think that's what they'll do. I mean, it's as simple as that. Really good player. I thought he was extremely awesome against the Patriots in the playoffs and really good down the stretch and found his rhythm under Jim Harbaugh. Kwity Paye to the Tennessee Titans, reuniting with Gus Bradley, the guy that got the most out of him in his defense. Gus Bradley is now the defensive coordinator in Tennessee under Robert Saleh. It's a system that he knows, right? And he's performed in. He was drafted to play in for Indianapolis, and he had his most success in. So I think he's going to want to go there, probably on a 1 or 2 year deal. And again, Tennessee has a ton of money. They did bring in Jermaine Johnson at the edge position, but it doesn't hurt to bring in more guys that are still kind of in their prime, just heading to their peak. And I think Kwity Paye is another one of those players that fits exactly the style that, Gus Bradley is looking for. Jalen Phillips, I think, will return to the Philadelphia Eagles. I had him going to the Commanders. I thought maybe he'd be too expensive, but there's been report after report after report indicating that Philadelphia is doing all that they possibly can to keep him. Now there's Jalen Carter reports that he could get traded. That makes it even a stronger possibility that Jalen Phillips is not going to leave. Plus that tie to Vic Fangio and just the excitement that we saw Jalen Phillips play with last year once he got to a good team. I think that sticks into my mind as a place like he doesn't want to let that go. He doesn't want to go somewhere where he could fall back to some, bad situation on a bad team. So I think Jalen Phillips to Philadelphia sticks around, how he's going to do whatever it takes to keep this kid. Boye Mafe to the Dallas Cowboys fits the Philadelphia system, which is exactly what Dallas is bringing in here. Boye Mafe is quick, agile. He's got great bend, great pass rushing prowess. Really a guy that can drop into coverage, a guy that can rush the quarterback, a guy that plays with quickness and fire. And I think he's going to get paid more than people expect. He's going to go from a situational player to more of an every down player, or at least being used more. And I think Dallas is a great situation for him. Dallas is definitely going to get a pass rusher or an edge rusher. I think Boye Mafe makes perfect sense for them. Joey Bosa reuniting with his brother, Nick Bosa. Never played with him before, but he will get a chance in San Francisco. Joey Bosa, Nick Bosa on the edges together. I'm going to be excited to watch this. Joey Bosa was really good last year. Really good for what the Bills wanted from him. He stayed healthy. He had 5 forced fumbles last year, which tied for the league lead. And a really complete edge rusher. He can still get it done against the run with power. He can still get it done with technique as a pass rusher. And the Niners do need some talent on the defensive front. Bradley Chubb to Carolina. He knows Elijah Evero from his days in Denver, so there's a reuniting there. There's also the fact that he played at NC State. So it's home for him. It's also a home in terms of a schematical fit. Carolina needs an upgrade to their pass rush. They love signing guys from the Carolina area. I love the fit. Jadeveon Clowney to the Cincinnati Bengals. I want them to sign a pass rusher, maybe 2. I think that Clowney will not be expensive, but he was really good last year. So if Cincinnati is smart, they'll sign him because he's excellent against the run. We've always known that about him. But I thought the pop, the bend, the technique, the effort, everything was there from Jadeveon Clowney last year. I thought he was really good on Dallas last season. And the Bengals need a guy like this. They need a good NFL professional defensive end that can hold up in all situations. And Clowney can do just that. Draymond Jones also to the Bengals. So I think the Bengals might take the approach of, instead of going for top of the market guys, going for volume on defense. That does at least make sense to me. The thing about Draymond Jones that I really like for Cincinnati, not only is he a former Ohio State player, I believe, so hometown affiliation here as well, but also he could play inside and outside. They saw him against Baltimore. He played on the edge for Baltimore. He played interior. So he can play inside on pass rush downs, which they don't really have or have had. They kind of could use that versatility, but then he can also hold up on early downs on the edge. So he's a player that can play multiple positions. For this defense, that is something that they really need. Cameron Jordan to the Detroit Lions. There's ties to Cameron Jordan in the front office. There's a lot of Saint affiliation with Detroit, and he's obviously Dan Campbell being one of them, formerly Aaron Glenn being another, but Cameron Jordan is a great leader. He has a lot of experience. I think he actually could leave the Saints for the first time in his career. He's an excellent run stuffer, and he also provides great versatility for a defensive front. He could play inside on pass rushing situations. He's excellent against the run, setting the edge. He's got the archetype style of long arms, power, rush end, which is exactly what they like. Marcus Davenport was a Saint. Aiden Hutchinson is in that archetype as well. So he's a nice complement. He also was really good last year in more of a situational role. So I think that's what he would provide for the Lions. Not overly expensive, but a very good role player who's a veteran who wants to be on a good team in a winning situation and a winning culture. Cameron Jordan to the Lions. Devin Lloyd, linebacker to the Raiders. Devin Lloyd is one of the best linebackers in the NFL, certainly the best in free agency. He can do it all. He can rush the quarterback on blitzes. He can cover with extreme range, length, and just overall talent. And the Raiders are going to be running the Seahawks style of defense. So with that being said, Devin Lloyd can cover space in the middle of the field like Ernest Jones, take the ball away like Ernest Jones, also play downhill, stop the run, which he did in Jacksonville, and get after the quarterback as well. He could be the Ernest Jones plus for the Raiders. Next up, might as well go here. We got Leo Chanel for the Buffalo Bills. His defensive coordinator, or his coach from Wisconsin, is now in Buffalo as a defensive coordinator in Buffalo. So it's just perfect. It makes sense, right? He already knows the system, and he's already kind of proven himself at the NFL level to be a very good player. Now he'll get the money to play in Buffalo. Plus, he played with the Chiefs, so he probably doesn't want to go somewhere that sucks. He probably has respect for the Bills, their organization, Josh Allen, all that sort of stuff. So Leo Chanel probably would see that as an exciting situation, not only the coaching affiliation, but also the team, the chance to still be on a very good team with a lot of talent around him. And he'll be the best linebacker on their team instantly. Plus, he brings more pass rushing prowess. They're changing their scheme. Better against the run, bigger, longer, all that stuff. So yeah, perfect fit for the new Bills system. Then we've got Quay Walker to the Washington Commanders. Quay Walker, he's a good Dan Quinn fit in the recent linebackers like Frankie Louvu. Frankie Louvu, who could play downhill. Frankie Louvu, who's basically an edge rusher turned into a middle linebacker. Quay Walker has great speed, though. So he's an upgrade on speed and range from Bobby Wagner, and he's also way more versatile. Like, he can rush, he can blitz, and he's effective playing downhill, but he also has the capacity to be more of a coverage player and a better player in space. So he upgrades them in terms of their athleticism in the middle of the field, sticking to the archetype that they are kind of looking for. Next, we've got Caden Ellis to the San Francisco 49ers. Caden Ellis, I didn't really think of this, but Caden Ellis did play for Raheem Morris, and Raheem Morris loved him, and he was the leader of his defense. Raheem Morris, the new defensive coordinator for Kyle Shanahan's 49ers. They do need a linebacker in San Francisco. Since losing Dre Greenlaw, they haven't really had one, and Fred Warner is coming back from major injury. Caden Ellis is one of my favorite linebackers in the NFL. He's one of the best blitzing linebackers in the NFL. If the Niners want to add that element now that Raheem Morris is there, they could add that with Caden Ellis. And he's just a really smart, really productive, really consistent linebacker. I think this would be the type of signing that would be fresh for the 49ers, but also a perfect fit for a need as well. Next, we've got Demario Davis to the Chicago Bears, reuniting with Dennis Allen, replacing Tremaine Edmonds. Demario Davis is ageless. Demario Davis never declines. He's a great player with really good coverage instincts, excellent run stopper, excellent blitzer, excellent fit for Dennis Allen. We've seen it so many times. Then we've got Alex Singleton to the Denver Broncos. He's not leaving Denver. I mean, the guy survived cancer through his process playing with the Broncos. The organization loves the guy. He's a hardworking player. He's a great leader. He's a really relentless tackler. He fits Vance Joseph's system, and he's the leader of the defense, the heart and the soul, arguably. Devin Bush to Cincinnati. I wasn't sure about this, but I do know that Cincinnati needs a linebacker, and they do need to get faster at linebacker. Devin Bush played for the Cleveland Browns, could easily make the trip to Cincinnati. Playing with sideline to sideline capacity, was a huge playmaker for them last year in Cleveland. And again, just they need a linebacker. They need defensive talent. They need speed. Devin Bush is all those sort of things after his breakout with the Browns. Bobby Wagner returning to the Rams after his stint with the Commanders. He did play for McVay once before, I believe in 2022. The Rams do need to upgrade their linebacker position. They're all in on winning a Super Bowl. They just signed Trent McDuffie to a massive contract. They traded for him as well. They could use that linebacker upgrade. Bobby Wagner doesn't move like he used to, but the Rams don't ask their linebackers to move that much. So having a guy with instincts, having a guy that can tackle, he's a sure tackler, a very intelligent player that can get his defense set up, for Chris Shula there in LA. It makes sense for them to reunite at this portion of his career. One last ride for Bobby at a last final second ring opportunity. Nakobe Dean to the Dallas Cowboys. Again, Philadelphia affiliations. This has been heavily rumored. Nakobe Dean is going to leave Philadelphia and go to Dallas and go to the rival, but it makes perfect sense. Nakobe Dean is exactly what Dallas needs. A guy that can impact the pass game as a pass rusher, a guy that has incredible instincts and intelligence at the linebacker position, a guy that can lead a defense, which he did at Georgia, an all-time great unit, and they will pay him. So Nakobe Dean, the linebacker to pair with Overshown, who it would be a nice pairing because Overshown is extremely athletic and wiry, and Nakobe Dean is very cerebral. So I really like the combination. Levante David, speaking of cerebral, will remain in Tampa Bay. I don't see him going anywhere if he does return to the NFL other than Tampa Bay. This is a Travis Kelce situation. There's only one team that will sign him, and it's the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Quincy Williams to the Atlanta Falcons, reuniting with Jeff Ulbrich from his Jets days where he was an all-pro caliber player. Quincy Williams is extremely athletic, and if they do want to shift more into that Jet style of defense and more that fast, relentless, aggressive style, you know, moving from a Caden Ellis, who's more of a thumper, to Quincy Williams, who's more like reckless and just fast and ferocious, that makes a lot of sense, and Quincy Williams already knows the system and has played at a really high level under Jeff Ulbrich. Bobby Okereke to the Tennessee Titans. Okereke has a connection to Gus Bradley, where he played in Indianapolis, played at a very high level. Plus, you know, he's a perfect fit for the Robert Saleh system. You know, that's the style of system they replicated in San Francisco, Seattle, Legion of Boom. So Tennessee also needs a linebacker. They need speed at linebacker. They need upgrade at linebacker. That is a coveted position in this style of defense. Okereke is a leader, plus Brian Daboll is in Tennessee. The captain of his defense was Bobby Okereke. So, yeah. Next, Eric Wilson will reunite or stay in Minnesota with the guy, Brian Flores, who had 6.5 sacks schemed up for him. I just don't see how Eric Wilson would want to leave. I think he would probably take less to stay with the Vikings. But other teams might be interested if they want a guy that can get after the quarterback as a blitzing linebacker. He was really good for them last year. Alex Anzalone reuniting with Aaron Glenn. This one, again, feels very obvious, but I think it's going to happen. You know, they're not going to re-sign Quincy Williams. They don't have any linebackers really on their depth chart that are starting caliber. I think Alex Anzalone, the way he can cover and play man-to-man is exactly what Aaron Glenn is looking for, and he's a great leader on and off the field. He was also there in New Orleans, too. Tremaine Edmunds to Carolina. There's a connection between Dan Morgan, who drafted Tremaine Edmunds as a part of the Buffalo Bill front office. Tremaine Edmunds going to Carolina. So Edmunds does provide a lot of what Carolina needs at linebacker. He can kind of do everything between blitzing, covering, and playing the run, but he is very erratic. Last year, you know, a lot of turnovers produced, but also some sloppy play. You need to put him in the right situation. He's very long. He's got really good coverage skills at times, and he can make a lot of game-changing plays. And in those zone coverages that Evero likes to utilize, Edmunds is a perfect type of lurker in the middle of the field, but at the same time, he can still add something because of his size to, you know, the downhill aspect of the defense. So Tremaine Edmunds feels like a very good fit without breaking the bank for the Carolina Panthers at linebacker. Jamel Dean at corner to the New York Giants. The Giants have said that they're going to pursue a corner. They were in on Trent McDuffie. So it appears they're going to want a corner. And Jamel Dean fits what they like to do with a lot of their cover 2 stuff in this style of defense. He was excellent in cover 2 last year for Todd Bowles and has a lot of experience playing in crafty blitzing style of defenses. Dean had his best season of his career last year, and he is on the free agent market. He's going to get a nice contract for a veteran player that's around 30 years old. Then we've got Reek Woolen to the Washington Commanders. Washington signing everybody in this video, so if you're a Commanders fan, you should feel happy. But Reek Woolen is fast, long, talented. He does kind of have a little bit of a personality thing, but I think Dan Quinn can get this guy motivated, and I think, you know, with Dan Quinn playing more man-to-man coverage, it feels like the last few years, Reek Woolen has the capacity to do that, but he's also played at an A level in zone coverages. So between the cover 3 style of defenses that Dan Quinn has played or the man-to-man cover 1, Reek Woolen has the length, the speed, the size to ace in both. So Reek Woolen, I feel like, is a perfect fit for the Commanders' corner position after releasing Marshawn Lattimore. Rasul Douglas to replace Adoree Jackson as the number 2 corner in Philly, a return to Philly for Rasul. Rasul was really, really good in Miami last year, very underrated. He's very good in terms of his instincts, his zone coverage, his ability to play in the 2 high systems across the NFL, which is exactly what Vic Fangio does, and it's exactly what he did in Miami. Jalen Watson to Tennessee. Now, Jalen Watson also has size, length, press capabilities. I think that's what Robert Saleh needs. Tennessee needs a corner desperately, and they do have the general manager that was in Kansas City with Jalen Watson. So there is a pure connection here and a big need that will be fit by Jalen Watson, who is still very young and worth the money, in my opinion. Alontae Taylor to the Las Vegas Raiders. The Raiders have a ton of cap space. They need corners like they need air. And Alontae Taylor is a playmaker. He's more than a corner. He's like a Devin Witherspoon for this defense for the Raiders. He can blitz, he can tackle, he can cover, he can play inside, he can play outside. It's the exact player they need. Joe Woods also worked with Alontae Taylor in New Orleans. So there's a connection there. And then also there's a connection with Kubiak, who also worked in New Orleans. So there's multi-dimensional elements here. The need and the fit in the system and the scheme of the defense, then also the connection between the coaching staffs. Greg Newsome also played his best football under Joe Woods. I also have going to Raiders. They need to sign more than one corner. So they could sign like Reek Woolen. That would make sense, obviously, because of Kubiak. But Greg Newsome, he also, like Alontae Taylor, can play inside or outside. Probably would play outside to begin with and replace Eric Stokes in this defense. But he is at his best playing zone coverage, and he's been at his best playing under Joe Woods, who's now with the Raiders as well. So Greg Newsome to the Raiders. Then we've got Teron Johnson. Just feels like a New Orleans Saint pickup. After losing Alontae Taylor, they need a good nickel corner who can do a lot of different things between tackling at an extremely high level, playing the run and the run fits, and also blitzing. He's regressed a little in coverage, but that was never Alontae Taylor's strength either. This would be a more affordable option for them and a nice replacement who has a lot of experience playing the nickel position in the NFL. He would do it for Brandon Staley. Josh Jobe to the Seattle Seahawks, or back to the Seahawks. They can't lose both him and Reek Woolen. He's a very reliable presence on the perimeter of Mike McDonald's defense. I've done that multiple times. And he's still an ascending player. I think still an underrated player. Maybe he gets more money elsewhere, but I think he's going to want to stay at the home of the place that gave him his real opportunity. Then, Nahshon Wright to the Green Bay Packers. The Packers need to sign a corner. Now, Wright, they're familiar with his game, having played him in the playoffs, having played him 3 times last year. He's extremely tall with excellent ball skills, which fits really well in a zone-heavy system, which is what Jonathan Gannon's going to do in front of that Green Bay pass rush. But also, Gannon covets corners more than I think their previous defensive coordinator or previous scheme. So I think they're going to want to put more money in this position. It's also the profile that the Packers attack at corner. Younger, or just in general, free agents, younger guys, like 25, 26, 27. Wright is still in that range of player, and so I think that makes a lot of sense. Eric Stokes to the Dallas Cowboys. There's a connection between the coaching staff and Eric Stokes from the Green Bay days with Eric Stokes. Stokes had a breakout season with the Raiders as their number 1 corner, being one of the most underrated performing corners of last season. He fits what Dallas wants to do. He's got really good speed, and he can play the perimeter position. I think they want to move Deron Bland probably back to the nickel spot. That would make the most sense. So going after more of a perimeter guy would make sense to me. And Stokes, I think, is just hitting his stride at the NFL. Then we've got next, Kobe Bryant, the safeties. Kobe Bryant, maybe the best on the board. I mean, very versatile, can play nickel, can play free or strong safety, very reliable tackler, but very good range on the back end of the defense. I think he's going to stay with the Seahawks despite the interest elsewhere, because I think they just know how valuable he is to their defense. It's not always the turnovers or the interceptions that he does get and does, create in this defense at a very high level, but he also just, they don't give up big plays, and a lot of that has to do with your free safety, and that's Kobe Bryant. Nick Cross to the Commanders. Going back to Maryland, where he did play his college ball, which was pointed out to me in my last video. But also, he's got excellent range, really great tackler. He's a havoc causer. He can blitz. Dan Quinn can unleash him in the box role, formerly manned by players like Cam Chancellor. So, yeah, Nick Cross is just a really complete safety, an all-around defensive back, a playmaker. I'd love to see him in a system utilized by a guy like Dan Quinn, who needs to get faster in the secondary. Brian Cook to the Bengals. I think the Bengals are going to sign a pretty high-end safety. Safeties aren't very expensive, and Brian Cook is as reliable as it gets. Very good in coverage, solid tackler. Probably underrated by a lot of people, but still younger. And like I said, the Bengals need just reliable safety play, and Brian Cook gives them that. Also championship level experience playing with the Chiefs. Then we've got Jalen Hawkins staying with the Patriots. He just played way too well for the Patriots the last 2 years for him to leave. I love his combination with Woodson on the back end, and I think Hawkins, you know, he's kind of always been like a third safety in the NFL before he got to New England, really got his opportunity. And I think that's also going to be taken to heart by him. So I think as long as he gets a modest contract from New England, I think he's going to stick around and play in the secondary, roaming around for Mike Vrabel. Then we've got Alohi Gilman staying with the Ravens. I think that obviously Jesse Minter already knows him and how he fits in his defense because Gilman was with the Chargers. Then he was traded from the Chargers to the Ravens. So it's a seamless fit in the system, and he was a really nice complement to Kyle Hamilton at the safety position because Gilman is best at free safety. So it makes a lot of sense for how they complement each other within this defense. Jaquan Brisker to the Steelers. The Steelers need a safety, period, but Jaquan Brisker can play at all levels. He's an excellent roamer of the box, tackler, blitzer, and he can cover tight ends, but he's also really good in split safety looks, which is what I think they're going to be running a lot this year. I think they're going to be a lot more zone-based this season. So I think Jaquan Brisker is a really good fit for them at that position, and he's young. Then we've got Kevin Byard returning to the Bears. He was a leader of their defense, had a great season, his best in many seasons under Dennis Allen. He plays with great instincts. He's a great communicator of the defense and just keeps them on the right page. That's the way to put it. And then we've got 2 left. Woo! We got Jalen Thompson for the Buffalo Bills, which I did have in a previous video. I love how he fits in this defense. You know, you think of the style that they're going to play. They need a guy that can do everything, you know, and that's what Cole Bishop does. You know, he can fire against the run. He can play in the back end, in the secondary, deep, and cover split safety looks. You know, he can really tackle. Thompson can do all those things. He's played free safety, strong safety, in the box, nickel, all those different spots. And I think Jalen Thompson is a perfect complement to Cole Bishop. And then our final players, Reed Blankenship. Jerry Jones finds a safety from the Eagles to play in his back end to just not give up big plays. Remember early in the year last year when Dallas was giving up big play after big play after big play? Yeah, that's what you don't want to happen. So Reed Blankenship to the Dallas Cowboys. He doesn't give up big plays. That's exactly what he did in Philadelphia. So there it is, guys. 100 free agent landing spots. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Thanks for watching. It's Mitch. Gronk spiked the like button. We'll see you in the next one, man. Free agency is here. Thanks for watching. Peace.